Looks like we have a nice crowd coming in, so shall we get started, Joe?
Yeah.
Do you want to go?
Was that my cue? Okay.
That's your cue.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome back if you've been part of this before, and if you haven't, then welcome for the first time. It's a really interesting series of speakers that we've had, and I think tonight's speaker will be equally fascinating. So these meetings are sponsored by Cordev. That we also host another meeting on alternating months on the second Wednesday of odd number months. It's called the QA-SIG. So if you haven't been, or if you're interested in quality assurance talks and lectures, then you're certainly welcome to join that too. And in the past, we've always had these hosted at our offices, and we had, pizza and soft drinks and beer and stuff. And hopefully we'll get back to that soon. But we'll always continue doing the Zoom thing because it really has opened up everyone from around the country to be able to participate in it. So I hope you enjoy it. Tonight's talk should be really interesting. It's principles and practices for successful project design and development. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to sign off on my video feed, but I have my headphones in and I'll be listening. And there's always an opportunity at the end to ask questions. The one thing I do miss about having these in person is the chance for everybody to become friends in person, but hopefully we can become friends on Zoom for now. Enjoy. John?
Hi, everybody. My name is John Bach. I'm the host of the PMSIG. I used to work at Cordev for many years. I now work as a senior program manager for eBay for the last 10 years. This forum started after I did a talk a year and a half ago for QA-SIG about being a former QA guy and becoming a PM. And so it was kind of a confessional. And as kind of a joke, someone suggested that I start a PMSIG to complement the QA-SIG that Joe mentioned. So that's this experiment. And I think we've done 4, and so far so good. So this PMSIG, the letter P actually stands for project, program, and product. So anything goes in that realm of management. The second Wednesday of every even month, like we are right now. And again, thank you for Cordev for sponsoring. In fact, Cordev wanted me to announce that they do have a PM role that they're trying to fill for senior infrastructure program manager. So if you're interested, reach out to Krista or Lindley at Cordev, or Shelley or Joe for more details. I'll also be moderating Q&A at the end, so stick around for that. And anyway, without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Mahnaz Milani with Products Program Management for Providence Digital Innovation Group. It's an incubator for digital health and building telehealth platforms for health systems. So Mahnaz has a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from Columbia, Master of Science in Physics from the University of Oregon, and is a seasoned serial and experienced leader of product design and development across multiple technologies and industry sectors. So I'm excited to see what she has to say about these principles and practices for a successful product design development. Like design thinking for an intuitive product, developing cohesive go-to-market strategies, and end user input and experiences. She's got more, of course, to talk about, but those are the 3 that I'm most interested in, and we'll see how she tells the different stories that she has around her experience. So anyway, without further ado, Mahnaz, welcome, and take it away when you're ready.
Thank you, John, for the introduction. And I wish Joe said, we were in the same room with the audience. So I typically have these talks much more interactive, and I try to connect with my audience to understand them better, so I can speak more in details about the experiences. And as Joe mentioned, I've worked on project, program, and product for all the Ps. And I just a little background. I think he covered a little bit. I started in East Coast. I went to Adelphi University in New York, Long Island. I studied physics, optics. Then there was a joint program. I went to Columbia and got a bachelor in chemical engineering and materials science engineering, and then moved all the way to West Coast. And I've been in West Coast for quite a while. I've started my career at Intel right after graduation. I did this joint program for Intel, had the Master of Science. It was a master's industrial internship. I worked at Intel for 9 years. That's the longest in my career I stayed. And I will get into details what I did and some of the principles of the product design for Intel. I did a certification program at Stanford while I was attending Intel. It was at the time, the program was under the Stanford Business School, and it was called Alliances in Innovative Manufacturing. And I was just fascinated in high volume manufacturing and how a product gets into high volume manufacturing. I studied some of the supply chain principles, and I studied the risk management for that, what it takes to take a concept, for a product and make it a high volume manufacturer, make it profitable, and understood the cost aspect of it during the design development with the design ideas of a concept, making it to mass volume. After Intel, I joined Apple, the fruit company. They were making fun of them. I joined it for these 4 years. Then I went very briefly to Facebook. I worked on Oculus VR headset. And for each of these, I will get more into design and products, what I worked on, what I learned, what I've seen from some of the industrial masters, and what failures I've seen, what success I've seen. And after that, I wish this was more interactive. I could connect with my audiences more. I'm not sure how many people, if they can raise a hand here, I can connect coming from healthcare background. Can people just raise hand? And I see on Zoom, I know Zoom has that feature. 2 people. Okay, awesome. Yeah, we have 2 people, 1 person. And so Livongo was a startup when I joined in 2018. They were going for IPO, and later, so they did an IPO, very successful IPO in 2019. And then I was there. It was very excitement of seeing a product, and which I get into more details of it, making it to mass volume from startup to going public. And then it was acquired by Teladoc, which is the largest digital healthcare platform in the US and globally. They have 70 million people that they're serving internationally. And I was not part of the company when the merger happened, but it's quite exciting to see my product going and reaching a lot more people. And then I've joined the Providence incubation team. It's part of the Providence venture. So Providence hospitals, Swedish hospitals, they have this little small incubation team that I'm working on. Going from my career, you see, from 2005 until now, these 16 years, from title perspective, I've been project, program, product, technical program manager, technical product manager, you wear different hats, but I would say they all have same fundamental. You're trying to make a most viable, lovable product and give it to your end user. And each one of this, I'm showing a picture of the products that I worked on, the failure points, the success points, and the money makers here. So initially started with Intel chips. Intel, I apologize about my dog being rude here. I really apologize. The gardener works outside and my dog just got here. So I work on Intel chips for 4 generations from 120 nanometer to 65 nanometer. Each generation, the way that Intel works for this is 18 months, including development and manufacturing. You cannot miss the timeline and the requirements, the principles. Once you dial in the standards, the process, it's, let's say there are 120 step processes in the Intel fab. Maybe each generation to next generation, you will tweak 10% of it. You go 12 processes that you would be your top innovation. And they have a TikTok model. Every other generation, they would do a massive jump and they would, for example, change a lithography, or they go with, as they go smaller, they're trying not to get, the whole entire system processes changed. And they determine the cost, the impact with Intel pure science. I'd like to say that, I was fresh out of academia, and my job I had a process engineer job inside a fab. I was working with technicians. It was more science, design of experiment, very basic chemical engineering, optics, physics background that I had. I work in lithography and etch. Again, show of hands, do we have anyone working in semiconductor in our audiences? No one. All right, I will not get into details of it, but I would say from the product perspective, deep science, going to transistors, what made it the highlight of the product was first being cost effective, to being achieving the yield. So again, that achieving the yield will lead into being the cost effective as well. From here, this is the time I transitioned to more on the supply chain side. I did the degree in at Stanford. I understood a little bit more on the risk management, risk analysis, and my title was Equipment Development Manager. And what we were doing, the device that you're seeing is quite a monster. It's called Atomic Layer Deposition, ALD, and ASM was the vendor. And the development of this happened in Japan, and it was 11 years of Japanese scientists and engineers working on it. And the significance of the product was this will replace a lithography layer. And just for the people who are not familiar with this ALD machine, there are like 8 chambers here. It's in atomic level, is a plasma making that atomic level. Still, the science of it, it's more around the material, not the device itself, not this equipment. And for the cost comparison, and just for the figure, this was getting developed to replace lithography layers. Lithography tool at the time is a Nikon vendor, is $110 million. And the cost of ownership of that lithography equipment, it's quite expensive for the factory and maintenance and the technicians, the science they need to know. This was going to replace the layers that the lithography tools will have in the transistor development. This machine was $14 million. So it was, configure like by fraction less cost. However, it was a massive, massive risk to make sure that this works and can make it development. So I worked quite long on this. I worked 7-8 months, but even before I joined it, the Japanese were working 11 years on that. Towards the end, when I left Intel in 2009, this was a successful introduction for a 65 nanometer product. And what I would say that the precision that Japanese put into this from product perspective, the good side of building this product is equipment, is a $14 million equipment, and probably they sell 20, 30 of this per year. They could sell it to Samsung, AMD, and other factories. What made it to be successful is you had the direct comparison. You knew that you're replacing an existing technology. You're replacing lithography tools. You knew the performance and what you're competing against. If you fail, it's like a direct fail. If you success, your success should be more out of the state of art, what we status quo that we have. So that's why during the development, I would say, like, we spent 3 years to just make sure that we are meeting the current plan of record, they say, POR, which is the status quo is a lithography tool, and then spend another, a year to tweak it and make it perfect so you achieve more yield. And then for the factory and which is the end user of this product is Intel factories, fabrication centers, the cost of ownership, it would be, by fraction less. I don't know if people have questions in the chat. I'll be happy to look at it, but I'll continue on going. I don't see any questions yet. The next product I worked on, it was a Apple Watch Generation 1. I joined this in 2011, around 2011, which was a concept development for it. Apologies, 2012. It was a concept development for Apple Watch. And the whole idea of Apple Watch, I don't know how many people, how many of you wearing an Apple Watch right now? I would like to see an attendees. No hands raised. Anyone wearing Apple Watch here? Oh, interesting. For the Apple Watch, oh, there's one person. Okay, awesome. This idea comes from the iPod Nano. Apologies for my baby crying. Let me close the door. I'm sorry. I have a 3 months newborn here. She's with my nanny. For the Apple Watch, the concept came from iPod Nano. The product development engineer who worked on iPod Nano, the story is, wore this in 2010 at the War Room with Steve Jobs and said, I want to make this personal item available for everybody, for all the users that we have. I want to put a screen on this and have it available for everybody and make it the most personable device for that person. This is where it started. And the user study and all the research that was done, the shape of it, the industrial design people that designed this, they were all inspired with that iPod Nano being on the wrist and making as much as program and accessible ideas available to users for that. We were targeting to release it in 2013. It was announced first in September 2014, and then it ended up being in the market in April 2015. What made it delayed so much is the Apple philosophy of perfectionism. We could not get a watch on this size at the time for generation 1 to go over 6 hours of battery and have all the capabilities that it does with the heart sensor, with notification settings, with being connected to your phone, and actually quite sucked. Even the Gen 1, I don't know how many people started having it. The Gen 1 battery had a lot of issues, and the screen were shattered very easily. I would say even with all the fuss and hesitations and the money Apple put in R&D for this, the time to market was compromised, which is so against Apple for a Gen 1 product. Time to market was compromised. The cost was quite high. Not sure how many people were involved. And remember, I was program manager for a gold watch, which the housing that you see here was built out of 18K gold. I don't know, maybe my background being Persian, I was inspired by having that luxury item. It was one of the most expensive product Apple ever invested to date. The cost of 18K gold and the fact that we were building it in China, it was not well understood initially from the product development team. I was the program manager for it, so I didn't have, when it started, I was more involved in the execution, not the concept development. But just give you one simple story. The watch being built in China and being 18K gold, Swiss has to come, people from Switzerland had to come and etch 18K on this. And they had a specific device, and it was a certain time that we had to arrange. And imagine all of the coordination we had to do, make the device ready for package, put all the QA testing passing, and last hour before leaving the door, someone had to come from Switzerland and put the 18K laser etch mark on this and close and knock out. So make sure this is, a proper shippable product. And there should have been no time from when we do the finalize the packaging on that gold watch to leave the factory. I would say in my career history, as you see all the products here, this is the most failed product that we did not understood the user. Apple industrial design team failed of understanding the use cases. And again, these are the anecdotal story for me because I was a program manager. I was following the news thoroughly. A watch with 18K gold, it costed about, I believe, $20,000 in 2014. And I don't know, Apple stock was $90 at the time. If somebody would have spent like the amount that they did on the watch and they would have had that watch today, probably would be, as of today, the value of it. If instead of buying Apple stock, you spend that $20,000 on the watch, it was like 150,000 difference. Like you lost 150,000 ROI for the value of your money. And then secondly, I don't know why it pissed off a lot of Chinese people. And right after we launched it and got the luxury of it, and product marketing and branding, did all these fancy logos for Europe, because somehow they thought this will have a good sale in Europe with the luxury market for the Europeans. It didn't sell at all. It sold very few in Middle East and some in India and some in China. And I can say we were targeting to build around 50,000 of these watches. We stopped at 5,000, and probably Apple sold under 1,000. And just imagine the investment and the amount of gold. And after this product failed, we had to melt the gold and give it back, and it was the most failure product I ever worked on. If anyone wants to know more about this, you can write it in the chat. And I would say the failure for the program manager of this product comes directly from not understanding the market and not knowing the users who will need such a product. And please keep this in mind, because later as I go with the digital health and the product I'm working on, I want to touch base on what changed and why is so important to understand your users and how you can make a product actually successful for once you understand your user and you can interact with them and know what they want. In healthcare, it becomes quite visible. After this great failure that I had, and a lot I learned in China factories and working with different vendors and product marketing team, I went to a different group at Apple. It was around 2016, 17. It was a new product introduction. It was a concept development, and it was not clear what this product will do, but it was supposed to replace Touch ID. So it was a sensor. It was these tiny sensors that you see here. I'm not sure how many people are, again, like I'm sure a lot of people do have iPhone and the Face ID. When the Face ID, I started working on it in 2016. The idea was we can replace the Touch ID successfully and get rid of the Touch ID completely. So I worked on these tiny sensors as a concept, and it was part of the camera group. We had so there's an ambient light sensor, which typically the use case was for when you bring your phone close to your ears, the screen goes off. That was the sensor team that we had, and now we are adding more use cases that when you're getting closer to the skin color, the ambient light sensor starts acting. The proximity sensor, again, prior to iPhone X, the use case was when it gets closer to somebody's ears or head, it will your screen goes dark. But now we are introducing another concept for it when it detects a person's skin color, it starts, acting on the screen and activating the Face ID module. And this flood illuminator, again, I'm not sure if you do have anyone in science background, is a big cell, and the entire module that I worked on, I would say I use a lot of my experience from the Intel chip days. It's very similar to that. It's just instead of silicon, there are different product, and the functionality is different. So all that stuff that I learned, long time ago before then, I used the process engineering knowledge and background I had, and I was the new product introduction, working with vendors on the successful introduction of these module into the system. And I personally was involved in this for 18 months. It was successful, and we launched it in September 2017, I believe. And I was looking for next big thing in my life. I had this, amazing product experience for iPhone X, and then also we introduced it for iPad. It's a great use case. We did a lot of user research studies, and one of the concepts I would like everyone to take here, I don't think there is limit in doing user research. For this, because of the different skin tones and different color and different eyes, I would say at Apple, there's a user research team, human interface design group, probably we conducted together, because I had to give them the hardware, the device ready with all the software and programming available, over 4,000 people. A lot of employees. Apple has this culture of secrecy. Would come, they had no idea, but we had to scan and get to all these different skin color and eye combination, and doing completing the machine learning algorithms for that. And still, if somebody had iPhone X, initially it wasn't as good as it is today, 4 generations after. But just making the first product introduction with that, over 4,000 user research were conducted. They were involved, the human interface design group, which had the machine learning and the product development team behind it. They were involved from the beginning, from the get-go that we were doing concept. I was getting these sample products. They were barely functional, but they were building the machine learning algorithms on them, and on human do the user research to enhance the algorithm. I would call this a success product, as I worked on as a new product program manager for it. I was happy. Then I was towards the end of it, I was looking for next big thing. What is it the industry is looking for? What is the next big thing in the world? What are the great products that could be next and achieve the most impact on people? If people, anyone here follows the news, I do read TechCrunch a lot. I read Wired magazine, and with the technology, virtual reality and augmented reality was the hot topic. I did the interview with the Oculus team, and I went to Facebook. Not much about the company culture. I'm not going to talk about it because I hate it. The whole Facebook, the way that is structured, move fast and break things. It's not the way that I like to operate and build a product, especially in hardware space. Hardware cannot move fast. Hardware has its own cycles, which I will review in upcoming slides. So what I was specifically working on, there is something called Varifocal, and the way it is, I don't know how many people have tried the VR headset. I actually have it, and my husband has one at his desk. I'll show it to you here. So this virtual reality headset sits on your head, and there are 2 lenses on this. It's much lighter now. This is the next generation of Quest. So I didn't personally work on this, but something similar. The eye adjustment, you see your screen like very close to your eyes. A lot of people get headache and fatigue from it. And this is notorious and historical issue with this product. You're isolated from a surrounding. Some people might like that immersive experience. Some people might not. But as a product manager, just put yourself in this, that you're designing a product that a lot of people hate and some people love and do, like gaming. whole concept of Oculus Group was going beyond the gamers. The people love this product and trying to expand it and make it an enterprise solution. And what would be the issue with the main enterprise solution is the eye fatigue, and that you cannot, majority of people get nausea, headache, and eye fatigue. So I was working on the lenses, and there was a team that I was working on core technologies for the eye tracking. And Oculus had acquired a company from Denmark, iTribe, that they were working on the software algorithms and rendering, software rendering. So wherever the user looking into this screen, they enhance the resolution. So with the existing hardware, software could adjust for that. So it was a marriage of hardware and software and machine learning, and from the get-go. So this is, I joined them in, when is it, May 2018. And we were expecting by end of 2018, we will have a product that, can be shipped and, have users available. I knew it's a failure. There was nowhere from the concept and from the product spec requirements, everything looked perfect. But in reality, I was a technical program manager for it. I knew it's not going to work. And I would sit down with the product manager and go into hours discussion. How on earth do you think the existing hardware that I'm doing a user research, and I'm doing user research on myself, I cannot achieve that acuity and resolution that you're putting in your product spec. And you are thinking about the high volume manufacturing. We want to put this in the manufacturing floor and actually build this. So that was my role, like get this from the machine learning software team and put it on the hardware and, deliver it in the factory. So after a lot of arguments, in quite a month and a half, I decided this is not the product I want to work on. I knew my gut feeling. I would say probably 5 years out, they would have it. I know I'm talking to my colleagues, and now it's, 3 years out, they still don't have it. So maybe in next 2 years they can. What was written in product spec looked great and amazing, and people signed off, and all the directors and VPs loved it. Mark Zuckerberg thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna put one headset on every human that is using Facebook. This is not gonna happen. It's just an idea that is nice. And I don't know how they were far with their user research. Like, we had the result is not working, and just having that ideation. And it was good to inspire some of the younger scientists coming from academia, I would say. But I had worked on so many different products that I knew there is no way that we can achieve it in 8 months, yet alone in 5 years, what is written in the spec. So I don't know how many people are familiar here with this Silicon Valley term that they say rest and vest. So I could have said that Facebook get paid and just vest my stock and just don't care and say, oh, I'm working on this product that is very cool. But that's not who I am, and I wanted to work on some meaningful product. I was recruited by a startup that is called Livongo, and these are the other devices I worked on. So I got into human, more in touch with human aspect and healthcare. This is a blood glucose meter, and there's no such a device out there yet. I worked on medical devices. It was first time I got introduction to it at this startup. It has this whole FDA 510K cycles, a lot of documentation. It's very different. It's very challenging. I loved it. I worked day and night at this startup. I traveled to Philippines, China, and I knew what impact this product has on a user. It's very clear. It's for type 1, type 2 diabetics. There is a strip that goes inside this blue area here. And there are a lot of challenges with designing, making sure that the moment that your blood touches that strip, so I don't know how, like, if you're familiar. So you're poking your finger, you're getting a drop of your blood. People with type 1 and type 2 do this 2-3 times a day. And the current devices out in the market are very clunky for this. It's very outdated. The best ones, they have Bluetooth, but making it cellular, that every time you get your measurement is uploaded into cloud and is available to your doctors, providers, and coaches, nurses. There's not many out there. So it's pretty much like a cell phone. So imagine your cell phone that you're carrying. It has this area of blue that you see, and that's where you can measure your blood sugar. And you put a drop of your blood on the strip. And the building the hardware device relatively with my background was easy. The hardest part here was FDA approval. I would say I worked the most in my life on this. So in October 2018, right after Facebook, I was so disappointed on this product. The amount of investment went to this. Facebook bought Oculus for $2 billion. And this was a product that was so out of reality, and it's good for gamers and not solving anyone's real problem. I was so motivated by the failure I had here that working on this day and night. I was working, I was the only technical program manager, the device person that the startup had hired. I built the team in program management. I brought a product engineer in to write the user requirements for it. And I was mainly focused on actually make the product ready and submit our documentation to FDA. We had to run a clinical trial. I had to make sure the devices that we are getting to clinical trial is going to be the same device that gets to high volume manufacturing. Another devices that I worked on the side, it was, so the cellular was so successful model that we decided to use an existing blood pressure monitor and put a cellular 4G module inside. And these things, when I was working on, honestly, I was very inspired by, like, my dad will work on this. My dad will take his blood pressure and he would lose the number, or he would not write it down or track it properly. He had hard time pairing his Bluetooth device with his smartphone, and just building something that he doesn't need to remember the numbers, and his doctors and nurses would automatically have it in his account. And same with the weight scale, that it was, we use the existing, the scale is available everywhere, but the innovation here was putting a cellular 4G module there. There is another blood glucose that it was a joint collaboration that it was Abbott has this continuous blood glucose monitors called CGMs, and I did this pairing with the one device I could use, because some people have these CGMs attached to their body. They don't like the Perkins and getting the blood. So I could get the data uploaded into their device that they had. I worked at Livongo for 18 months. I would say it's the most glorious time of my career. It's a smart team. It was the first time for me being out of corporate. It was the first time I work directly. We used to call our members, patients with type 1 and type 2, and I get their feedback. What are their pain points? Losing drop of their blood. It's quite frustrating for them. The amount of blood they need to do, especially for type 1 diabetics. So one of the innovation of this device was it required less blood compared to the average blood glucose monitors that is available, off the shelf in Walgreens and other places. So it was a real human touch that I had. Right before, so this is 18 months I worked on this. Last year, 2020, around March, we moved to Seattle, and unfortunately I had to say goodbye to the team that I had. And if I knew it's going to be pandemic and work from home continuously, most likely I would have not left and I would stay with them. These devices, the company at the time, when we went IPO, we had about 1 million members. Then when the acquisition happened with Teladoc, it's targeted to go high volume for about 40 million people. People with blood, pressure, with hypertension, with diabetics, with weight management. These devices will touch them, and I'm very proud that it made someone's life easier and actually helped them achieve their wellness and health goals. Coming to Seattle, I I interviewed a few other companies, and with the incubation team that I am in right now, so I 100% got out of the devices and hardware world, and I'm working on the software. If any of you here are connected with Swedish hospitals, that's the most famous one in Seattle area, or Providence or Caltech. I work on the mobile app for them. And the what I love about it is it's with the software and with the mobile app in healthcare, when you're establishing a virtual visit, for example, here, or you're trying to book in-person clinic, this is the most you're in touch with a human. You're setting up a person with their doctors, with their primary care physicians. So we do a lot of user research and interviews, and I love that about the product, that in a software and mobile app world in digital health, you have to have that feedback. It's not like a golden Apple Watch that failed. That was like an industrial concept that no one knew what does the user want. With the mobile app that people are using, we on average for weekly average user, we have about 8,000 to 10,000 members, and this shifted. Luckily, I joined them, and pandemic, the virtual visits spiked up, so it shifted massively. On monthly average users for Providence and Swedish app, let's say, went from 1,000 patients to 10,000 patients. So we were talking about scaling, making it easier, the billing, the insurance, and all along designing these different screens and different user journey. And we will conduct user research and get the feedback and pain points and how we can iterate it fast. And in a software world, and just having a mobile app is way faster to iterate. It's not like a hardware that is fixed like this Oculus headset. This is where I am now. I gave it like a very broad overview. I went from like a pure silicon, no touch with human, to a mobile app today in this 16 years journey. And for the hardware product design development, this is a traditional consumer electronics. And when I was putting these slides together, I'm not sure again how many people have this hardware manufacturing background here. I really wish it was more interactive in a room before me being inside behind the screen and talking. It takes 18 to 24 months, and it's one of the hardest, to design a hardware. Each phase, once you lock it down in EVT phase, it's engineering validation test, you cannot tweak and you cannot change your industrial design. And the same concept for the consumer electronics, if you apply it to a medical device, it goes to 28 to 36 months because of the whole FDA phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, the clinical trial that you need to do, the validations that you need to do. A lot of people now are involved with the vaccine development, and they know how the clinical trial of 3,000 should have happened. For my device, I had to do clinical review with 350 patients in the different cohorts. And so we ended up doing 800 patients. All of this helped us to make a better product. All of this helped us. And I wish there was a good bridge between pure consumer electronics and medical devices. They learn from each other. Medical devices go in depth of making sure the user is fine, which understood, because of the risk of death. But consumer electronics, they have the limit, there's no limitation. They have this world of they can build whatever they want and put it in front of the users. They're just FCC laws. So the design is harder for medical device. The development cycle is longer, but at the end, when you get to your end of phase 2, your design validation completed, and you have a product you can sell. If I put the example of Apple Gold Watch, it would never make it probably to here, and that your failure much faster. But in medical device, you go through the whole thing. FDA reviews all your risk management, traceability data, and then you get to the last phase of the manufacturing and market release and the design transfer to the factory. Quickly getting here for the, this is just one example of a medical device and how the planning will happen. And I would personally, I would love to see, like, there is no regulatory submission for other consumer electronics, but I would love to see other products. I actually apply this now in my mobile app, that we go to these steps of planning feasibly, like, including all the assessments of how will impact the user if I delay the virtual visit, if I put these other notifications now during the mobile app, what is the impact to the user? So constantly reviewing the risk to the user. And I learned that through the medical device. And it's not a standard practice, but it because I've been through that medical device development. I go to this design and implementation through the eyes of the user, through the risk to the user at every single step. And lastly, in healthcare, we start with the persons we are designing for. We can create better products and a happier, healthier world. And I would love to expand this. And this is what I review with my team right now, that you have to have your the user is going through this mobile app, and the risk to that user, if it's delayed, they might be in a very critical condition. They need to talk to their primary care. We should, enhance our app. We should enhance all the friction points so they can faster and easier get connected and skip the billing, and all of those that we do in the design development, to skip those and get into the patient discussion. This is the mobile app. Is much faster, easier to develop all these risk assessments with our team. In hardware space, I hope, like consumer electronics, they do a little bit more of the risk assessment. Currently my project as of today is like I do design mobile applications for health and care, and I on purpose I have it different. So I do work on a lot of nutrition and wellness stuff, and with the risk of the user in mind, and also the health and the patient's health. So there are people with serious illness, they come Swedish, and how they utilize the mobile app. They want access to their medical history data. And how I can make it better every day virtually and digitally. Like they don't have to go in person, see their physician. Digitally, they can connect it with their device at home and connect to that. What I'm the most passionate right now is the primary care access that I have set up today with these physicians, and I've been part of the journey with our team. I know there Amazon Care, and there are a lot of other startups doing it, and I love seeing this whole virtual world of physicians connecting to patients fast and reliable way. That's all I had. And sorry if I spoke too fast. I would love to see if there are questions, or switch over to John.
All right. Thank you, Mahnaz. I'm just going to put in chat any questions and open it up. So my question is, I don't think I've ever met somebody who is so immersed in the device tactile world like this. Have you worked on projects that were completely software driven? And if so, what are a couple of highlights as a product manager that are similar, and maybe a couple other different?
Sure. So as a software, the mobile app right now, the Swedish and Providence is my software team. So I work in a Scrum, with a completely different cadence, with different time cycles, different type of people. I don't work with any, product design for manufacturing teams in the hardware world. I would say the major differences for me is iterations, how iterations happen so fast and quickly with the software, and the codings, when we do a lot more QA. With the hardware development, you cannot do QA and testing that fast. You have to build it and, go through the whole steps, and you have to do it very thoroughly each step to make sure that you don't have to iterate that much. In hardware, you don't want to iterate. In software, you easily iterate overnight and pass it on to your QA. That's the major difference. And although like it's, it has this quick iteration, but software, once you have it, it's much faster to get it in front of your user, and the impact to your user could be a lot higher than the hardware can have, because hardware still goes through the QA and testing and, risk assessment for that. It happens a lot before, but with the software, if I release in my app update in the app store and becomes available tomorrow, if there is a mistake there, it's risking a patient's life right there. Like if there's a mistake of you not connecting to your virtual visits, risking a major person's life, like right overnight, like I do it. So it's a completely different world as far as the, thought process of the development and testing and QA and release. In software, I try to do a lot more QA before the release. It's like a much longer QA period, whereas in the hardware is a lot more emphasized on the design and development, and QA is a lot less because I don't have the room for the iteration.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mahnaz. First question comes in. What are some of the key things you look for after setting up your user research?
Number of friction points. The number thing that I look at it, if there's a mobile app, how many clicks they have to go through, the click-through rate, and or the easyability, the accessibility, how easy they can, review the product, that the material that I want to have it for them. Same with the devices, the safety and the friction points. Like for example, just something very simple on the blood pressure, the cuff size. We tried, so there's like a standard sizes for the US on the large, and I monitor them, watch them closely. How would a person put this blood pressure cuff on? And I try to make the user instruction manual to show all those steps. So in each user research, I try to have the different cohorts, especially like 65 plus for medical devices or on the mobile app, and see how they interact with this. And my number one go-to person is my dad. It's like, how would my dad open this mobile app? He's an 85-year-old, so he's much older. How would he open? How can he find a virtual visit? How is it for him to put that insurance information and the billing information? And how many times he fails? And honestly, like I get those failure points and bring it to the team. He didn't know how to get his credit card information there. Can we do something else about it? Did I lose your voice?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was on mute. Thank you for the answer. The questioner thanks you as well. The question queue is, yeah, empty. So another question that I had that is really compelling just from this slide. When you think of the Perseverance rover on Mars, if you were on that project and your device was going, millions of miles away, would your approach to any of that you took to any of these devices change, or would it pretty much be the same?
A lot of it is situational based. The team dynamic, how it started the project, the background behind it. I typically when I start working on anything, I try to understand what happened before. What is the origin of this idea came up? Why are we building this? And this product, anything, this pen, why are we designing it this way? And what are the competitors and what else has been done? I try to, as much as I can do, to look in the past to predict the future. And based on that, like if for the Perseverance and Mars, and like how much in the past failures or, for this type of product, what are the other, points that have been done? Especially I did that a lot in medical field, which it was completely new for me, medical device. I read the FDA medical devices like a website. It was my, bookmarked. I was reading it every day, understanding how many other glucometer are coming, and I would read them thoroughly. And from their research standpoint, I would go and predict what we need to do. Like that's how I self-taught myself. And I'm doing that with mobile app right now. I, downloaded like 20 other mobile apps in virtual visits with a lot of other companies and try to see how they have designed theirs. So I typically try to see what is in the market. How did our origination come up? With Apple, it was hard. Like when we did Face ID, there was nothing else out there. Like I had to, it was like when you have a novel idea, it's hard to go and, do the research and design idea. But when it's, one thing I like to say with Apple product team has been the best I've seen, and they actually do product like on the like an iPhone group, with the user in mind, is like a 10 generation, 11 generations. They have so many data of the current users, how they use it, how they can enhance the screen time. But like if WatchDim didn't have that, it's as much as user-based understanding as you have, you can design a much better product. And it's not necessarily innovative. It's just you're enhancing it. You're making it better for your user. So that's their I think genius behind the Apple products, that they understand their users much better.
Yeah, I would agree. I think so. Based on my experience, I am wearing an Apple Watch, by the way. So I didn't know if I could raise my hand.
And I might be very Apple biased. I have a Huawei phone because I was going China, and I have a Samsung phone, Android. The UI is just not as intuitive. Like, I don't want to be biased. It's just they build if you look at the product that you want to look at it, you want something intuitive, frictionless. You want something that user knows, like a not much educated person can get an iPad and start playing around. Like a 2-year-old can do it now. And you have to have that type of product mentality in mind.
Yeah, I agree. The questions queue is empty. Anybody have any questions? And while people think of that, this may be the last question unless I see something, but one thing that software professionals share, as well as like device professionals like this slide, is requirements and interpreting them correctly, the inferences that we make, and when they change. So what's your advice, given the set of requirements, to
John, you went on mute.
So, yeah, one of the things that there's no questions, but while people think of one, we're almost at the end, is requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing we share is if requirements change, and interpreting them correctly. Mm-hmm. So how can we both, whether it be the software or the hardware or firmware or somewhere in between, mitigate the risk that we're misunderstanding the requirements, or that we can build the right thing? Has that happened to you in your career, where a misunderstanding about a requirement caused a major risk, or you mitigated it in a particularly interesting way or powerful way?
I'm sure based on your experience, you're highlighting the most important thing, and I 100% agree with you, the product requirement. As your program manager, product manager, I partner with your team and come to the picture. I have this philosophy of you cannot target a moving target. You cannot chase a moving target. If you don't lock down and freeze your product requirement and your design, you constantly keep missing it, what you need to build. Whether it's a software or whether it's a hardware, you have to lock down the product requirement and agree on it. It's very hard to do this when it's innovative and novel idea as a first time, especially in this software mobile world. We are working on some things like with the chatbot, or with the way that we sign in and log in to the app. It's like a single sign-on. There's so many different requirements from the security standpoint, from patient adherence standpoint, from the HIPAA requirements. You have to lock down all the requirements, and I've been trying to teach that to my team now, that let's gather all these requirements and write it down before we go design a product, that the definitions for the user. Just let's see what are the requirements we have to hit, lock it down, agree on it, and agree on the platform way that this is the software team needs to build before we go do the user research and get to the how it should look and fit and feel for the friction points. I would not work personally in any space. I would not work on anything and start being a program manager or have input on it if I don't have a product spec. I get the product spec. I go get the engineering spec and design document for it, and then I go start building a schedule and timeline around it and risk mitigation and all that. But before getting there, like I can become very useless for your team. And I tell all, like, team that I go to, I'm your program manager. If you don't give me the engineering spec, if you don't give me product spec, I cannot build any, schedule and risk for you.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, no other questions. But we're at time. So thank you again, Mahnaz, for being here. I know you're on LinkedIn. Is that a good place to reach you if people want to ask questions or get advice, things like that? Is that all right?
Sure, I'd love that. And I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to share some of the background experiences. And I hope audiences liked it.
Oh, thank you. I thought that was a fascinating talk, Mahnaz. It's right up my alley, because when I got into software, it was through user interface design. And they said, well, since you designed the interface, then you get to test it. And that's how I got into testing. But I really loved your insights, and thank you for sharing.
Thanks for the opportunity, Joe. I appreciate that you guys have this platform.
Cheers.
Thank you for sharing.
Stay in touch.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to. I'm local now. I'm Seattle.
Yeah,
Yeah, come by and see the lab.
I will definitely.
Great. Have a great night. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
thanks everybody for joining. We'll see you next time.
See you in June.
Yeah.
Thanks.
See you in 2 months.
Thanks, Sharon.